GM everyone, welcome to Flywheel. I'm your host, DeFi Dave, here with Sam, aka Traders Insight, and this episode is the Frax Year in Review episode. And it has been quite a year full of ups and downs, twists and turns, highs and lows. But if I had to encapsulate this year for Frax in one word, it would be perseverance. Sam, what do you think? How do you think Frax held out this year?
I think that we're going to look at everything through the next, hour or so, I guess. But I think there's just a ton of stuff that got shipped out. Like if you look at all the products that came out, I would be hard pressed to find another team in DeFi that works as hard as the Frax team does. And this is just 2022, right? With everything that's coming soon, with the roadmap that's coming out here in a couple of days for 2023. I'm just very, very surprised about how much got pushed out and really looking forward to what's coming.
And I think you can make the argument that the Frax team over-delivered this year on their promises. At the beginning of the year, as we'll get into, everything was about the DeFi Trinity. So it's like lending, liquidity, and currency. Stablecoin, lending market, AMM. Not only did Frax ship that out, but they shipped out an LSD, a bridge, the CPI stablecoin. Like they just shipped relentlessly, like no matter their condition. And I think it just says a lot about the team and, why they're so respected in the space.
Yeah. So it was a big year. There's a lot to look at. We're going to go all the way from January to today, pretty much.
We're going to go deep.
Yeah.
Deep.
So you actually pulled an all-nighter to get all this information.
I have stayed up all night for plenty of reasons, one of which is to get this info to you. And to begin this, I think at the beginning of the year, it was still like top of the bowl, like lots of mania, ohm forks and ohm still like all the rage and whatnot. And there's a lot of excitement, a lot of money still flowing around. Frax was at like an all-time high. People are super excited about the DeFi Trinity. FrxETH just got added to Convex. Like lots of excitement around Frax. And then, a few threads like this, like the Central Bank of Crypto by Andrew King came out, which, makes the argument of like Frax becoming the settlement layer for all stablecoins in DeFi, which is pretty cool. And this plays into the whole DeFi Trinity. Which honestly, I can only see DeFi through the lens of the DeFi Trinity. And once you know what the DeFi Trinity is, you just spot it everywhere. You just spot it like, oh, this is like an incomplete Trinity. Like, oh, they have one part. Like, oh, like this is what they're doing. Like, what are your thoughts on January?
Well, this is the top of the market from some fair weather friends in Andrew.
Fair weather.
Fair weather friends.
Fair weather. There's no Frax logo in his name anymore.
Unfortunately not.
I'm going to pull up.
Maybe in 2023.
Maybe he'll come back.
I remember this thread. This was a good thread. This really kind of broke down on a lot of the roadmap that was going to happen in 2022. And Andrew was right on, right?
He was spot on. Like this is a phenomenal thread. It's important to note at this time the circulating of supply of Frax was 1.84 billion and growing. At this time, it was still meme mania. Daniel Sesta was at the top of his main character arc and posed a real, threat to like all stablecoins.
Yeah, the whole Danny thing.
And he almost took over sushi. The whole Danny thing was just,
it's crazy.
Just super, yeah.
He's going to make I think Danny makes a comeback in 2023, honestly.
I don't know. He just got kicked out of MIM. Maybe he does like a new project, but like, I don't know. I mean, he's super charismatic and like, he obviously builds and ships, but he seems like his own worst enemy is himself. And like, maybe he comes in like more meditated and less of an ego, but I'm not here to speculate on that. Actually, I like MIM as a pro. I think MIM's without Sifu, MIM's a cool product. It's a cool stable coin. They built a more degen maker, and I respect it. But we're here We're here to talk about Frax, and at this time, Frax was like at its all-time high, $41, and it was a lot of excitement. And so, let's move on to the next one. We have Sam. February. We're on to February. Sam spoke at ETH Denver. He gave a talk about FPI and CPI. He gave a talk about the Consumer Price Index, and he also spoke on this big panel. This is notably the only conference Frax went to all year. They literally didn't go to anything else. That was my job, basically. And so, says a lot.
Yeah, it does, because you have to be wary. No, I wasn't in
go
Denver,
ahead.
but you have to be wary of other teams that are just like constantly at conferences, right? Like if you're at conferences all the time, like just going from one to the other and speaking, you're probably not writing code, right? You're like out on the conference circuit, like going out to dinners, and, not shipping.
You need
right?
somebody. Yeah, you need somebody at home, like looking after the fort, basically.
Yeah. So, the core team, again, like they don't really like travel a bunch at the moment. They're not on the speaking circuit, but they just ship, right? It's what you're here for, Dave.
Yeah, that's literally, that's why I get the grant money, to rep them far and wide, but I think you'll see the Frax team a bit more at conferences this coming year. And pretty sure like they'll be back at ETH Denver, and Sam has like a nice talk about stablecoins coming up there too. So, but anyways, moving on. I think this year was the first year you saw different protocols build around Frax. For example, Pitch Money has VEFXS holders earn cash flow through active governance. Protocols should be able to incentivize liquidity from their Frax gauges. So now this is like the Vodium layer on Frax. This is like their proof of concept. So, different, you saw Pitch, you saw like Hidden Hand, like different protocols building around Frax, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And, Pitch launched at a really nice time, just when Convex was kind of coming into it, and they were right in a nice sweet spot to pick up a bunch of Frax share into their treasury. But we should have the Pitch guys back on to come talk about the roadmap for 2023.
They have some exciting stuff down in the pipeline. Okay, yeah. So it's still okay. Making sure like still screen share.
Yeah, we're good.
Next up, we're good. I think I put this in. Frax being a base asset, because I think this is like an important part of Frax's evolution as a stablecoin, being a base asset for pairs, whether it's with Silo, with Vesta. Like if you're a base asset, then like you're the one that everyone settles with. So I thought this was an important milestone to put in. Like the fact that like more protocols are like looking towards Frax as a base asset. You saw it with Olympus last year. You saw it with like all the forks like Tempo DAO and whatnot. And now, you saw it earlier this year back in. Sorry, friends were saying hi.
It's okay.
And then you saw it back in March. And at this time, Frax reached its all-time high in circulating supply at 2.9 billion Frax.
It's a lot. We're going to break it this year. We're going to get back to all-time highs this year in 2023.
You think we're going to break it this year?
Yeah, of course. Like, look,
we're going to
assuming Frax gets a Fed master account, right? The base yield on Frax goes to 4%, because, or like whatever the short-term interest rate is, because all that cash that just sits in the treasury could be swapped out to like, swap all the USDC to like Frax USD, right? Actual Frax USD. And then that just sits in a bank account somewhere. And then the base yield for Frax becomes 4%. And then a lot of money could flow in. It'd be very good. So we'll see what happens once that comes around later in the year.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that develop. And I think people are overestimating how difficult it is to get a master account. It's definitely hard. It's definitely difficult. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's as challenging as people say it is.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing to think about is you're essentially creating a competitor to USDC in some respects. So, I'm very excited to see how that comes forward. But
Yeah, I mean, this, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it like plays out in models, and that's something like we can talk about more later, as you know, in this year in review. But we got up next. Who could forget this? The four pool, the four pool mania.
stable
Okay,
Quan.
stable Quan. So Danny arc ends. Sifu, Sifu thing happens. Mim like goes down a lot in TVL. Danny no longer main character. Next up, Do Kwon gets super cocky at the beginning of the year. Uh, it was kind of insane thinking about like how Doe was acting on Twitter and kind of like seeing all the lunatic army just follow suit after him, just being like absolute dicks. I don't know how else to say it, but like he was like he just was master of the universe and like could do whatever he wanted. He could say whatever he wanted. You know, Luna was just going up. They were like raising rounds left and right. They were, they had all the hype, all the buy-in. Like everybody was all about, algo stables, this and that. And like, and then, we reached this point with the four pool, and Frax joins it, and I think there's this one interesting tweet. I might have like have it here, but it went something like Frax is like trying to be like more like Luna, and Luna's trying to be more like Frax, but more so Luna being more like Frax because they had like the BTC collateral, this and that. Sam, what are your takes of the whole like Luna at the beginning of the year and up until the four pool?
I feel like Frax got dragged into the four pool only because of Luna's size. I
I
think,
think so too.
yeah, remembering back onto the chat in Telegram, I think Sam was always very hesitant to kind of pair Frax with the Luna model.
Mm-hmm.
And as Luna kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I don't think he actually wanted to have the four pool with Luna, right? It was only because Luna kind of my take on it is that because Luna had acquired so much curve and so much convex, they had become the primary competitor in the curve
Mm-hmm.
wars. And so I think Frax got forced into the four pool. At least this is what I tell myself, because Luna came to Frax and was like, look, let's stop with all this like bribe nonsense, figure out how to consolidate our power, and
And
then we
work
can
together.
work together somehow. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that was enough at where the market was at the time to convince Sam to go ahead with this four pool. But I don't think
Yeah.
it was
And
it was a
I
bad
think
idea.
that,
It was a bad idea in
yeah.
hindsight. I mean, look, I get it from an economic sense at the time. It made sense. And, maybe if the four pool had worked out, like it would have been great for everybody. And, Luna wouldn't have collapsed when it did.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
it
yeah.
really associated Frax with Luna at the time. And I think it kind of put a bad cloud over us, which is going to take another, cycle
Yeah.
to work out of.
This is like the beginning of April. April is like probably the most active month of the year for Frax. My opinion on Luna is I think they were besides Do Kwon's behavior, like I think they were genuinely trying to build a stable coin, and just kind of got like in over their heads, and they were trying to, like I said earlier, like actually like transition towards the Frax model, and kind of have a soft landing that never happened.
Yeah.
And so it just like, I mean, it's just one of those cases just flew too close to the sun. But
Well, I
I
don't
want to
think,
say at this
look,
time,
I think
yeah, go
Sam's a
ahead.
really Sam's a really smart guy. I'm pretty sure that he understood the Luna model, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
he was hesitant to really push towards any sort of like major partnership. And I think that having seen all the other collapses during Algo Stable Summer in 2021, it was pretty evident that Luna was going to have to be like completely special and not revert to the mean, right? To be like all the other ones.
Yeah,
Uh, and unfortunately it did. And we got kind of like lumped into Frax's and Algo Stable as well too. It's going to collapse at the time. But that sell
yeah,
off,
but
only
what
proved the resiliency of the peg, which I think will be good
and
for the next cycle.
we'll visit that. we'll talk about that later because that happens in May. We're still on April. I want to also
Mm.
say FXS around this time, because of all the Luna Moon boys, it reached near its all-time high of 38. Like it's around like $38 around April. And I put this in just to like kind of give people a picture of like how like Frax was like deploying in the vote incentive bribe economy. Like at this like April 3rd, $9.5 million bribe on Convex.
Wow.
This was talk about Flywheel. This was the Flywheel for like the longest time, and it was a very profitable one. And like just thinking about that like later on, I mean like right, I mean thinking about that like right now, that's really ridiculous. like this was the system that ended up working, and I think it says a lot to like how like Curve evolved and how kind of like Convex built on top of it, and like how Frax recognized Convex early on in 2021, and then we're at this point in April where like boom, like $9.5 million bribe.
Yeah.
What are your
And
thoughts
again,
on like the whole Convex flywheel?
well, remember we talked about in our 2023 predictions that like there has to be a competitor in the curve wars, because this is the reason why. That look at this. We were dropping $9.5 million as a bribe. Terra was dropping 5.2 million as a bribe during that time. So
Yeah.
it goes hand in hand. Like you need to have a competitor there. You can't just have a monopolized system inside of Curve and Convex where there's only one major briber. Like you have to have multiple people bribing to really drive a lot of growth in the LP pools. And so, I don't really see this as too out of line, right? Because like if you're looking at it, it's the two biggest stablecoin protocols that were deploying money, really competing at the time. And it's what led to the creation of the 4 pool as well too, because they probably I'm sure both teams looked at the numbers and were like, hey, we're spending, millions
This
of
is
dollars.
like a race to zero. Yeah. This is like a zero-sum game right now.
Yeah. So let's just partner up, and then we can, figure out the 4 pool later.
Yeah. Moving on, I put this in because this is a real interesting article about like Frax planning to buy like L1 tokens that would be used as collateral reserve collateral backing Frax, as well as them exploring real world assets. And I think this is notable because this did not end up happening. And in fact, Frax did a completely different pivot where the only real world asset they care about is the Fed master account. So it's just, evolution. Like you have to be nimble. You have to be able to adjust. And, things changed since April.
Yeah, it's definitely, hindsight is definitely 2020, and it's interesting to see the
hindsight
change.
is 2022.
2022, 2023, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Hindsight is 2023. Yeah. So, also in April, so this was like really like peak like Frax mania, I think, was like April in terms of like mainstream, kind of like going out to the mainstream, because beyond like the 4 pool, like there was an airdrop, the FPIS airdrop happened, and that was pretty cool for all the Frax holders and Fraximalists and all the people on Convex. Frax and their, like I said, like FPI was a big topic for Frax in the beginning of the year. Sam talked about it, and there was like a lot of interest because of the rising interest rates. And so, when FPIS, had FPIS had the airdrop, had a lot of discussion. There were a lot of threading about the CPI peg stablecoin, and I just and right now, like, I'm not sure like how much progress we've seen on FPI. It is earning yield. It is working, and they do have a surplus. They're earning yield, and so it is like doing its job from farming the curve. It's the curve FPI Frax pool, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is work. It's gonna be interesting to see like how FPI evolves and like what the plan for adoption is for FPI.
So
what are your thoughts on like?
I'm of two minds.
You're a big FPI guy.
Well, I'm going back to the airdrop. Let me ask you 2 questions, right? In again, hindsight is 2022, but I don't know if they should have unlocked FPIS at the top of the market, because it came out, it was trading at like $12, which is like $120 million circulating market cap, $1.2 billion
Yeah.
fully diluted. And it was just only from there.
Well,
Like,
if you think about it, everyone was like begging for the airdrop. Like they announced it back in like 2021. People are like, when airdrop, when airdrop, when airdrop. So, it wasn't like they're going to, if they delayed it more and more, then, I'm not sure I don't know if there's ever a right time. Like,
I
what I
think they
mean?
probably could have airdropped it, but at the same time, I don't know if they had to unlock it at the time, right? Because like what would, like there's still like we don't have VPI or VEFPIS yet, right? So what was
We don't have
the
that yet.
reason? Yeah, what was the reason for unlocking FPIS at the time? Like you could have, if they had saved it until the contracts were ready, especially down here in the bear market, maybe that would have been a better narrative at the time. But again, hindsight's 2020. At the time, it felt great.
Like,
At the time, it was the vibes were great.
yeah. Oh, it was awesome.
Like look
I
at
was
this
just like,
first
oh,
first response. My Angus is peppered.
I wonder if like they airdropped it because they made some deal with. I mean, they obviously made a deal with Convex, so like CVX FXS can claim. But like, I wonder like as part of the deal with Convex, they were like, oh, we're gonna airdrop at this time. I'm just speculating, so I don't know. But it was a fun time. Also that month, we had the launch of FrxSwap, which came out pretty fast, honestly, like considering everything else. First TWAM to market, um, you know, built with a purpose. Yeah, built with a purpose, which is to buy in large orders to perform monetary policy on chain, such as buybacks, which Frax is doing right now. So FrxSwap, first part of the DeFi Trinity, out, pretty sick. Any thoughts about FrxSwap's launch or where FrxSwap is now?
Yeah, I mean, FrxSwap has been great. A lot of the liquidity has moved in there. That is like internal, right? Like the Frax shares liquidity. The TWAM stuff, I think there's a lot of growth that can happen there. Like you think about, why can't you have interest bearing TWAM orders at some point? Like if you're going to be in
Yeah,
stables
that
for
sounds
so
like
long, yeah,
that sounds like Bento Box that Sushi did, or
yeah,
like what they tried to do. Like
yeah.
oh, you're honestly because it's a Uni V2 model. Like yeah, they could probably do something where like you have interest bearing LP tokens, but I heard about people building that, but I don't know if it like really took off or it has been like widely used. And I'm not sure it's just because it hasn't hit. It wasn't like, or like it was only like 90% done, or like why like that hasn't really become a big thing. Like interest bearing LP tokens for like unused liquidity.
Yeah, I think I think it'll see more growth in 2023. I heard something about like, because the Uniswap V3 contract is going open here in
Oh yeah,
2023.
I
So
can't believe
maybe
it's been 2 years since Uni
yeah,
V3 launched.
yeah. So maybe we'll
That
see
flies
concentrated
by.
liquidity inside of FrxSwap
Yeah.
in 2023. I know Sam's talked about it before. So
Yeah, he has mentioned that. Next, we have a Hidden Hand, the rollout of V2. As we mentioned earlier, different protocols building around Frax, these different vote incentive markets, one of them being Redacted's Hidden Hand product. And so definitely notable pointing that out. We had Sammy on earlier this year. Honestly, one of my favorite interviews. I felt like we had a really good conversation builder to builder.
yeah, it was cool. We'll have to have him back on to talk about the roadmap for 2023.
Yeah. Very curious what happens after Shanghai and what he has planned for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Also very notable, I think Sam being on Bankless when it was four pool mania. Like I remember reading about the four pool in like the Wall Street Journal. It was in Bloomberg. Like Terra was all over the news, and like Frax was a part of it. And it like elevated Frax to a new level, just being a part of Terra. And then like Bankless covered it for their State of the Nation. And it's really cool seeing Sam just Frax built David and Ryan on air. And I think he like definitely shares a lot of the same values in terms of like being on chain and decentralization as Bankless and like the Ethereum ethos in general. So this was what do you think of this interview?
It was good to see Bankless giving some positive press
Yeah.
for once in Frax's life. Like coming into this, like Bankless just kind of no-showed Frax for about a year and a half. up until
Yeah.
this, right? Like it was just
Yeah.
conspicuously absent from everything, right?
I probably saw like Faye like 2 times, and you see like I saw Olympus a few times, Barry guys a few times.
Like
Um,
died like a lot,
die
but
die a
yeah,
lot, obviously.
yeah.
Like, but no love for Frax. But
This
until
was a change, but this was a sea change. This
mm,
was Sam coming in and actually getting like an hour to speak with the guys. Uh,
yeah, and
and I
I was yeah. Wait, what are you gonna say?
and I think he made a great impression coming through here. I think it's one of
Yeah.
those things where the more that you can be a little bit dismissive, but once you start actually speaking with Sam and
Hmm.
understanding that there is a really good vision and that they're building something really smart here, uh, that I think they came away in a much better understanding after that.
Yeah, and I think we have to give credit where credit's due. And like shout out to the Bankless guys for having Frax on the month before they added Frax to the GMI index that Bankless runs with Index Group at the time.
Mm.
And it was a really good interview, really good way for Frax to reach a wider target audience. So
Yeah, definitely.
kudos to them. We have the launch of the 4 pool, which first launched on Phantom on 420. Um, you know, monumental moment because of all the hype around the 4 pool, and then it's interesting that they launched it first on Phantom, and they launched it first on the side chains because it went from Phantom to Optimism, and they like were seeding liquidity slowly, and like just doing a gradual transition. Still like Terra mania at this time. And so, any thoughts about this?
Well, yeah, Phantom was really peaking at that time as well too. That was peak Phantom
Mm-hmm.
at the time. I
Yeah.
forgot about
Was
this
this
actually.
solidly time? Was this
No,
solidly
it was,
time
but
too?
I think it was right before Solidly.
Mm-hmm.
This was just like peak Phantom. Phantom went from like $2 to like 20 or something like that, and it was
Mm-hmm.
really just like everybody was talking about Phantom.
Yeah. Interesting. And then, oh, but yeah, so that
Oh,
was
it's this
the 4 pool launch. We are on to May,
to
and
May.
May was the month where it all went down, and the collapse of Terra happened, which I think is one of the most well executed conspiracies of all time. Well, I guess did they say that it was like Alameda that did it in the end, but like was that confirmed or
I thought it
no?
was Celsius. I thought it was Celsius
Or
that
Celsius?
yeah, that did it.
Okay, so it's still like unconfirmed. So like that means it's a good conspiracy when you don't know who did it. Um,
Actually, it was Frax. It was Frax taking out its biggest competitor at the time by
oh, of course, yeah. Then I just
reducing
yeah.
liquidity in the Terra pool enough so that they could, you know, depeg them
I mean,
and send it to zero.
yeah, definitely. But to like recap what like actually happened, they were moving liquidity from the Luna was moving liquidity from the 3 pool to the 4 pool. Liquidity was thin, and there was some account or some like group of people or agent on chain that had been like accumulating a bunch of terror like over the months, and when they saw that liquidity was thin, they knocked the first domino like around like May 8th or May 9th or something around that time. And then it was just a roller coaster all the way down, like every other algo stable, where it's like goes down a little bit and then goes back up, then goes down a lot more and then goes back up, like the standard roller coaster down. Um, and around this time, it was just like absolute open season on all stable coins. Like once like there was blood in the water, everyone just tried to attack and depeg stable coins. But you know, Frax, with the way they built Frax the stablecoin with the AMOs and how they engineered it, it kept its peg. It kept its peg and was able to scale down safely. What are your thoughts around like the Terra depeg
Well, I
and how
think what
Frax
came,
reacted to it?
yeah. So we essentially at the end of the day, you had two different models. So Frax's choice was, let's have everything on chain and let's lock liquidity. We don't need to have off-chain market makers on these centralized exchanges that we're essentially providing loans to
Yeah.
make markets. And Luna took the opposite one, where it's like, we're going to have all these huge market makers like Wintermute and a bunch of other ones.
It was mainly Jump.
Yeah, and Jump. Yeah, we're just going to give Jump like billions of dollars of UST and other assets that we have, and we're just going to send them off to like Binance and whatever other exchanges want to trade it, and just let them go, right? And that's how we're going to manage our liquidity. And I think their on-chain liquidity was actually pretty thin, to be fair. And if they had, like, again, hindsight 2022, but if they had just had an AMO system that was able to mint unbacked UST and put it into the curve contract, never would have happened, right? I saw some analysis afterwards that had they paired with Frax at the time, it would have almost been unbreakable, because they would have had $2.4 billion worth of liquidity, and some of the bigger sales that were going through were like 300 to 400 million. So
what do you mean paired with Frax? Weren't they just paired with Frax in the 4 pool?
Well, the total size of the 4 pool would have been like $2 billion or $2.5 billion post transfer. Like, once Frax fully deployed its AMO funds into the 4 pool, and also once Terra moved their entire liquidity, because I think they had like 600 or 700, or maybe no, it's probably more. I think Terra had like close to $1 billion worth of liquidity. We had $1 billion worth of liquidity in the Frax 3 pool. They had the Terra 3 pool, and then Doe came out and said, "By my hand, die will die." Or like that. You remember that? Yeah,
and I do remember that.
Yeah,
love Doe. That's a little extreme there. We're all friends.
We're
all stable.
So the idea was to kind of jettison DAI and essentially move to USDC, USDT, UST, and Frax, and kind of put DAI back in its place as this useless stablecoin, as Doe thought at the time, and maybe it would have worked. I mean, maybe it would have worked. Like, when AMO, like, if there was a couple of $1 billion in the 4 pool, maybe it would have worked. Who knows?
Yeah. I just remember Doe making those absurd bets with random anons on Twitter, like $1 million, $10 million. Like, man, like, you could just like write the script of the downfall from that. But yeah, Terra collapsed, and this was really a turning point, not just for Frax, but for the entire market. Like, so many people were just zombies after this, and we didn't feel the full effects of the Terra fallout till like later on, whether it was through 38C or even FTX, Celsius, all that. So May, Terra collapses, Frax maintains peg, gets Lindy, gets stronger, and the circulating supply of Frax crashes from 2.63 billion to 1.4 billion Frax. And to make a proper stablecoin in like a week, a proper stablecoin not only has to scale up, but needs to scale down effectively as well. Next up, we're in June. And this was a real turning point for Frax. Like, there was like
Haim appeared?
Haim appeared. Yes, Haim did appear. Our good friend Haim, who put Flywheel on the map. So like, shout out Haim. Like, thank you for that. Probably like one of our most watched interviews, even to this day. Like, people still come up to me with that. But like, I think just like the tone of Frax and everything changed. June, and what I write in the article is like, from the ashes of Terra, you had like Frax BP proposed and the CRV whitelist proposed for Frax, and you had Frax experimenting with an Ethereum validator. Haim was paying attention early on, and this is when I like found Haim. Haim had like 500 followers, I swear, and I saw him write all these threads. I'm like, this guy is like a machine, and these are like detailed, deep threads. And I remember I just like reached out to him. I'm like, dude, I love your work, and that's how we became friends, and how he came on Flywheel. And then the Haim phenomenon started, and now he's growth on Umami. And, we love to see it. We got to have Haim back on again.
Yeah,
it'll be cool to have Haim and Alex on for them to like talk about, what they're doing on Umami. That, write a note for that. Also, any thoughts about like, kind of like, the beginning of like the ETH validator for Frax?
Well, this is the base pool thing, right? Also the ETH validator.
Yeah, yeah. There's the Frax BP ETH validator. Frax is doing even like in the ashes of Terra. Like they really just got into like, okay, we got to like hunker down and ship. Like, okay, we managed scaling down Frax, but now it's like to actually focus on what's important, whether it's like the DeFi Trinity and integrating further with the stronghold, which is Curve.
Yeah. So I'm of the opinion that the curve takeover model is great and that it should be applied more. If you think about like all the other different dexes and other protocols around in DeFi on different chains as well too, I think that the curve model works and that we should be deploying it elsewhere. Since we have all this Frax that can go into these different contracts, the model is good, and maybe in 2023 that's what happens. But
What do you mean by the Curve model, like Curve AMO?
well, just deploying AMO funds into DeFi protocols to gain a huge share, like 5 to 6, 7, 10% of the governance tokens through yield
Do you think
farming.
there's any DeFi protocols out there right now that are worth doing that for?
What's the solidly one that's getting built on Arbitrum? It's the we actually have a pool for it on Frax right now, and I think
I'm not sure.
that's right. I'll find it while we're talking.
Yeah.
But I think there's a couple of like
I
if you think about the cross chain stuff, it's mostly like we have a really good foothold on ETH right now, but I think there's an opportunity to really make a mark on every other chain as well too. Now that Frax Ferry is kind of like up and working.
Yeah, I think, but also I think it's time to focus on the chains where there's actually action, and you shouldn't just go to like any chain that exists. Like I think like priorities, and I've been saying this since the summer, should be Arbitrum, and I think there's definitely been progress made there between like it's included in Fraxes and GLP, base pair with Vesta, but there's definitely like more that can happen, and you wrote the article with Gamma Swap, which we're like both huge fans of.
Yeah. I Gamma Swap seems really cool. The Dex was actually I just had it up. It's Velodrome on Optimism.
Velodrome, yes, I know. Well, no, yeah, Velodrome is on Optimism. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So now
that actually launched in June or July. Yeah,
yeah. So now that the Frax Ferry to Optimism is up, we definitely should have some larger AMO deployment there. I think this is going to be a big governance topic in the next year. Is like
where to deploy.
getting more granular about AMO deployment and how aggressive or conservative the DAO wants to be with those funds.
Yeah, that will be
Because
a
in the
point.
bear market, everybody's going to be super conservative, but in the next cycle, I mean, it could be the case that we get really aggressive in AMO deployments.
And if Fraxland can get a piece of all these like early protocols, like that'd be really, really good. It would be a really good thing. I just want to say like one thing with like FrxETH. I remember back in April, I hosted the first Fraxless meetup in Amsterdam. We had 15 guys come in. We actually made somebody made sweatshirts. Shout out to DeFi Degen, and I actually had Sam on FaceTime. And Sam, that's when he first announced FrxETH and that they were looking into it. Was in April at the Fraxless meetup, and then in June that's when they had the first Beacon Validator live. So yeah, they've been thinking about that for a while. It's like, oh, it's just another stablecoin. So what if we come out? I mean, staking derivatives are just another stablecoin. Why don't we just come out with our own? And then we can't forget this. We all start somewhere. June 9th. It's when Flywheel launched.
Wow, so, that went really quick.
I know it's been 6 months since we launched. And we're another thing that came out of the ashes of Terra. I remember when that happened, I kind of went into like, okay, we need to do something mode, and I just made all these random groups with like people in the Frax community, and we had made one podcast group among other things, and you and Kiet were the ones that put in the work, and here we are with the Flywheel podcast.
Yeah, it's June. Our 1 year anniversary is going to be a huge celebration.
Yeah. What else we got next? I think this is big news. The proposed $20 million buyback. When there was a lot of shorting going on in the wake of the Terra collapse, and Sam dropped that proposal for the buyback, which passed, and they ended up buying back $2 million worth of FXS. They still have $18 million in the tank to deploy over their, the next how many months or years. So, very ballsy move, very very Chad move. When everyone's trying to sell tokens, I remember Lido was trying to sell tokens to VC, like other things. Like Frax is like, no, we're doing a fucking buyback at these prices. So, that says a lot.
I think it was one of those things where it's almost felt like where they came out and they announced the buyback when the narrative around Luna was really bad and everybody was just shorting everything to the ground. And they essentially came out and said like, hey, we're going to buy $20 million. And they only bought 2, but it was enough to drive the market back up to like $8, $7-8 on the pair.
It was, yeah. And they still have so much left in the tank, but like, who knows? Like, it's like up to their discretion, and like, they don't want to get front run. So they're being very, closed mouth about it. But $18 million to buy back FXS, that's like, that's a lot. We'll see what happens there. Next up, a little bit of fun. I just thought this was just so fucking funny. Like, just at the beginning of the bear, especially in the wake of Luna, you just have like a bunch of stable bulls just storm Twitter and just shitpost and entertain everyone. It was just really fucking funny. Oh my god! I remember as an NFT NYC, like seeing this, and I was just dying laughing. At like all of them were just so ridiculous, and yeah, they're apparently all one person.
Yeah,
yeah. My favorite bull was Arizona Iced Tea Bowl. Honestly, I mean Frax. I obviously like Frax Bowl a little bit, but Arizona Iced Tea Bowl for sure. But yeah, the stable bowl phenomenon, and can't forget that. That was a lot of fun. I think this was worth mentioning. The Sam K, past, present, future of stablecoins episode was a landmark episode for Flywheel, having 2 just like such heavyweights in the field. Robert Sams, who literally wrote the white paper on senior shares stablecoins, and Sam, who is like arguably had the best practical implementation of his white paper, and then going back and forth. That was a really special interview. And yeah, thanks for getting Robert on that one.
Oh yeah, it was really nice to have Robert there. He's, I mean, it's just his ideas have permeated so far in DeFi and through the algo stable world, and it was just nice to hear him talk about his reflections on what has happened since he published the paper.
Yeah, and like my brain hurt after the podcast. It was just so much information to take in. And I'm just like, all right, yeah, okay. It was really interesting though, but it'd be cool to have him on again. We had Sam on a few times after this too, so see what happens there. Also, Sam, I remember Sam's introduction was like 10 minutes long, giving all the context to like it was a very dense introduction, but it was actually quite necessary. And then like my favorite part about that podcast was how they were bouncing like back and forth at the end because they both got comfortable, and like me and Kiet didn't even need to talk.
That was a good one.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. And then, oh yeah, fucking Frax BP launched the Frax USDC pool. The Frax base pool launched in that time, and Frax USDC, Frax becomes a base pair in the Curve protocol. They won the Curve war at the protocol level, so this was a big moment for sure.
And it will, because I mean, what else is going to be getting a meta pool at any time, right?
Exactly. We heard the interview with Curve Market Cap. He was saying like a decentralized pool with CRV, USD, and Frax, which is actually an interesting concept. Like I wonder like what they're going to do with CRV with zero fees, like to bootstrap adoption, for like non-reliant fiat stablecoins. So, but I think one thing we learned with like Frax base pools, like it's like one thing to get a base pool, but it's like another thing to get like, volume and action towards the base pool, which Frax has been doing. But, the three pool is still such like so entrenched in the curve protocol that it's a gradual transition. So I'm not sure, like, I feel like I'm not sure how much it's in their interest to have like a bunch of base pools because that just splits liquidity everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. But it made
So
sense. I mean, it made sense for Frax to create the Frax base pool because we were paying an insane amount of bribes to die at the time.
exactly. Yeah. It made sense. It made sense for Frax, made sense for Curve, made sense for Convex, definitely a winning arrangement. Next up, what I really liked about July was it was just all about Fraxland Alpha. Like, Harvey Milk, one of these threaders out there, went in and wrote a thread about, and like, he didn't write a thread. It was 0xD24 wrote his thread about Fraxland. I'm just like, whoa, like he looked at like every part. He like understood like how it worked before anything was announced. And, Crypto Condom, shout out to them. For recognizing as well. Next up, we had the Fraxless meetup in Paris. This was a lot of fun. We had like 30 people show up to this, and we had the Frax sweatpants. Some memories. We had a crowd out here. I guess what was it like watching this? Like when you saw this?
Well, it was cool to see a lot of people just show up in the depths of the bear market, right? When the vibes
Yeah.
are so bad. I mean, what, you had like 30 people here, 40 people?
Yeah, there was a crowd here. Yeah, like I remember, I wrote a speech. I wrote it in like because I just procrastinate really bad at things. I probably wrote it in like 20 minutes, and I just try to like put context into everything, like why we're here. There's a video of the speech somewhere, and then I did a trivia for giving away the Frax sweatpants. So that was a lot of fun getting merch out there. We're gonna have to like get more merch out there for the people too, because there's really not too much Frax merch yet,
It's
but
coming.
we can fix
It's
that.
coming.
It's coming. Next up, we have the Fraxland interview. Everything you need about Fraxland, which was one of our most viewed interviews because this was the only place for alpha for Fraxland. And Drake was a phenomenal guest. One of our first 2-hour podcasts, and we just go in on Fraxland, like every nook and cranny about it. What did you think of this interview?
Well, it was cool. I mean, Drake's really, I think he's a really good spokesman for Frax. He's very experienced in the field, and he's really knowledgeable about how everything in the protocol works. And I think that both him, he does a great job of explaining things, right? And it was really nice to have him on and get his thoughts about kind of the broader market and also what was being built in Fraxland and kind of what was on the. He also had some really good insights about like what was happening in the mind of Sam and what was driving forward. So Drake always has an open invitation to come back to the Flywheel anytime he wants.
Absolutely. Yeah. Both like what's going on in the mind of Sam, what was the inspiration for Fraxland, what they took from like prior protocols that did similar things, but there was like Kashi or some other stuff. And also, we just chopped it up at the end about the most random stuff. Like we really got into like everything from diet to like biohacking and stuff. So definitely a fun interview. And, if you haven't watched it and you want to learn about Fraxland and have a nice listen, highly recommend. We have Drake over here. Yeah, we really got some good views on this one. We're on to August. That was July. And August was the Faye debacle. So for those who need a little refresher, basically Faye merged with Ferrari. They like basically took over the Fuse product. Fuse got hacked for 80 million, $13 million drained of Frax that was protocol owned liquidity. And, they said they were going to pay it back. They like passed a governance proposal to pay it back. And then there was like a board of directors like, no, we need a revote. It didn't pass. And then when they revoted again, basically they said no. And then there was radio silence for 2 months. And after this new proposal came out, which would only pay Frax pennies on the dollar of what they lost. And Sam doesn't really thread much or talk much on Twitter. He's not one for attention, and so like when he wrote a thread about this, you knew something was up, and you knew it was you had to listen. And by the engagement, like those numbers don't lie.
Yeah. We also passed that governance proposal allocating up to $5 million to legal fees to recover the funds.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. And
I think that was a nice shot across the bow, right? Because I don't think we ever deployed any of those funds, but it showed the Rari team, the Fate team, that we were serious about getting those funds back, and that
I think, yeah, I'm, yeah, go
they could
ahead.
have it brought them to the negotiating table and eventually led to the settlement. I think we made a $2 million bribe with Olympus to get $7 million back.
Yeah, we got like a little over half back, and I love how this was all done on chain. This I didn't have to go to courts. Like it was literally done in like 2 months. And so think about Mount Gox is still being handled through the courts. Like I can't imagine how much of a mess this would be. So it did reach. The pressure was put on. It did reach a nice conclusion. But Sam was really serious about this. Let's see. Yeah, Defiant wrote about it as well. And then oh yeah, the whole Tornado Cash debacle, of course. That made everyone scared shitless of USDC because USDC blacklisted Tornado Cash, and there's 70K of USDC in Tornado Cash, and ask the wider questions of like anything that touches USDC, is it safe from being blacklisted? And like now what we like to say is Frax isn't wrapped USDC. Frax is backed by DeFi with all the AMOs in action. But I actually wrote this article for the Defiant inspired by the whole Tornado Cash debacle. And what I try and argue in it is that, in fact, Maker and Frax actually hold this like very interesting position because of their design of being like, prioritizing both like staying pegged and also scaling up. So they have like exposure to USDC, and this puts them in this like middle position between like completely centralized like Tether and USDC, but also like definitely not like LUSD and RAI and other stablecoins. But because of its position, it allows those fully decentralized stablecoins to experiment. And also they have so much USDC, especially Maker. They have like 3 billion in the PSM. Like I doubt that Circle is just going to blacklist $3 billion out of nowhere. There would be way too much collateral damage. There would be some, like what I try to argue, there would be some type of agreement or unwinding for Maker and Frax. And Frax, the USDC is in Curve mainly. So they would have to blacklist Curve, and then there would just be bigger problems. But that's what my argument I make in the Diplomats of DeFi. Like Maker and Frax are like really pushing the DeFi space and stablecoin space forward with how they act. And
coming back to the Tornado Cash thing. I don't know if you remember, but Sam actually wrote a TIP, like a tornado improvement proposal, essentially saying Frax would provide full support for the creation of a Frax pool in Tornado Cash.
I remember. I helped him write it. Him write it.
Yeah. What could have been, right? Where like Frax essentially AMOs money into the Tornado Cash pool.
Honestly, probably a good thing that didn't happen at the end of the day. I remember like that. Yeah, that because I remember that was like early on in 2021, and looking for use cases for Frax. Frax is like trying to get off the ground, and so like obviously Tornado Cash, like really popular service at the time,
still a great use case. And I think long term, the Tornado Cash thing gets resolved, and that there's another version of Tornado Cash that comes along that allows Frax to deploy AMO funds into it. I don't know how it works, but I think the legal pushback is going to be strong enough that it essentially allows smart contracts to run on their own without interference.
Tornado Cash works so well that it literally got sanctioned. That's how it works well. We'll see. Like I think with that one bill, I wrote an article about the Toomey Act, the Toomey's Trust Act, where he literally writes like P2P, like sending of stablecoins, of fiat, of payment stablecoins it's not, it's literally the same as
Fully
cash.
supported, yeah.
Like, I think that's a really important, fully supported. Like, that would be a win for privacy if that passes. So, I think like legislators are waking up. I am hopeful, but we'll see what happens in the next session of Congress. Next up, we're in September. We're in the fall. Leaves are changing color, falling to the ground. And StakeDAO launched their liquid lockers of Frax. And so, like I said, the protocol's building on top of Frax. StakeDAO, they've had a whitelist on Frax for a while. They also have a whitelist on Curve. Offer a bunch of interesting yield strategies, such as these liquid lockers. And so, wanted to point that out. Have you used StakeDAO at all?
No,
me either.
No.
I honestly just use like myself. Like, I use my own. It ain't much, but it's an honest work.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, StakeDAO kind of like lost the war to Yearn, but they've made a comeback in 2022 with some other various products.
It seems like there's this like new curve war going on with like all these like with StakeDAO and Yearn and Convex. DeFi Made here wrote a really good thread about it, like the VE CRV wars. So next up, September, July, Fraxland hype, and it actually ends up launching in September. And with the first proposal of WBTC and FrxETH being the supported pairs. Big moment. When Fraxland was released, it was the completion of the DeFi Trinity. So cool stuff. Any thoughts on the Fraxland launch?
Oh, it was great. Really nice. I like all the pairs.
I like especially now, like they fit so well in the Frax protocol. All partners of Frax, whether it's like Geom or Curve, FrxETH. I mean, we'll get into that later on, but Fraxland launching was definitely a big deal and still is to this day. Next up, this is kind of the, going back to the whole Tornado Cash development. I thought it was very important to have this interview about decentralization and governance, having both Amin and Sam on. Amin, an absolute legend in the space, founder of Moloch DAO, mastermind behind DAI, founder of SpankChain, really pushing the space forward on multiple fronts, both in the DAO space and stablecoin space. So this was really cool to have both of them on, chop it up, and also like show respect to each other's models and stablecoins. There wasn't really, it's funny, like people on Twitter like fight all the time, like, oh, like you're not decentralized enough, like, oh, this and that. But like, you really saw the respect they had for each other. What are your thoughts?
Oh, great episode. Definitely worth the listen. Really enjoyed it.
Dude, I remember during this interview, because I was so jet lagged, because I was in Ireland for a wedding. And I remember I had to go back to my hotel. I had to go back to my hotel room from like the wedding pre-parties and stuff to like film this episode. And like, I was so tired from it. And I remember you said, it's like towards the end, you're like, Dave, wake up. You're sending me like the cat heavy breathing meme. And I'm just like, oh God. But I think it's kind of like when you're like tired and you're driving, if you're tired and driving, like you kind of like teach yourself how to drive at the wheel. Like if you need to drive somewhere, it's kind of like the same thing with podcasts. Like, no matter like where you are in the world, like you got to show up. And so, I think everyone performed on this interview, and I think, we got a lot out of it.
It's great.
Next up, I was on such an aggressive travel binge. This is me in Denver. Beard in full force. This is one of my favorite episodes. I mean, I feel like I say this a lot of episodes. We had a lot of really good episodes this year, but 0xD24 was one of the best threaders we had on. Like, explained his Frax bull case very well. Explained, what he's excited about on Arbitrum. Explained, his Barachain thesis. Oh wow, he's with Tapioca DAO now. Interesting. I just noticed that on the side, but I think 0xD24 is like one of the smartest people in the space. Like when he writes a thread, I listen, I stop what I'm doing, and I read it. Really good interview overall, and started in TradFi, originally a TradFi guy, and honestly super nice dude as well. So what did you think of this interview?
Oh, it was great. I really enjoyed his perspective on DeFi, and the threaders are always really nice to have on, because they just have a wealth
Yeah.
of knowledge to share.
I'm trying to scout new threaders, but it's like you can't really match. It's really interesting because like all the threaders we found were like post Luna collapse and seeing like who rose post Luna collapse. So let's see what else we got here. Next up, Stable Saloon. This was fun. This was it's funny like us at like for my at Piff Labs, like we wanted to throw a stablecoin conference via Flywheel, and like planning this thing. I've been trying to I was trying to figure out this thing since June, and shout out Votron for like helping me in the clutch of this. It was a really successful event. We had like 50 just like stablecoin junkies show up. Me and Drake
are those
chopped it
posters?
up. Yeah, it's the look at this.
That should be merch. That's Frax merch right there. Those are awesome.
That is Frax. Yeah. This is such a gorgeous view. Like you see the Statue of Liberty like in the background. This was just really good setup over a really good talk. I just remember like no one was drinking. Everybody was just like drinking water, like just like locked in. And the quality of the questions at the end was super high. And we have video on our YouTube channel of this talk. So, if you missed it, if you're looking for some Fraxland Alpha, Frax Alpha, get into the mind of like what the core devs are looking like, highly recommend watching that video. Did you watch? Yeah, did you watch the video?
I did.
Did you?
I
You did edits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you think of the thing? What'd you think of Stable?
Oh, again, I mean, I talked about Drake before. I mean, Drake's just a wealth of knowledge, and he's a great ambassador for the Frax protocol.
And next up, we have the young gun, Jack Cordry, who led FrxETH development. And we had our next everything you need to know about what Frax is building. So this was everything you need to know about FrxETH. This was like the next big thing, especially after the merge, because if September merge happens, and everyone's like, where's FrxETH? And FrxETH would release a month later. But we did this interview. Actually, no, we did this interview in October and it launched pretty shortly after. This is when we learned about the 2 token model. And so what were your thoughts on this interview? Like, how do you think Jack did?
He's really doing some great stuff. And I think that he's just beginning his journey in DeFi, and it's going to be really cool to see how he grows over the next few years.
Yeah. What else? Like, he's going to cook up with the Frax team.
Exactly.
Yeah. FrxETH launched, and launched around like mid-October. And the difference with FrxETH, of course, and we'll get into this on another program, is how the 2 token model is different and actually optimizes for more yield than your standard either rebasing model or a single token that just accrues value. But FrxETH launching was like
huge,
really big moment, huge moment. And then next up, we have, I think this was notable, the Scooby Truples development of him wanting to have an AMO or Frax BP. So basically, Frax BP backs all USD. And I'm just like, we need to do an interview right now. We need to do it. And we did. We somehow set up, everyone's like all over the world, literally like spanning 3 different continents, and we somehow get it done. The Halloween special with Scooby Trooples. This was a fun one. What were your thoughts on the Scooby Trooples development?
Oh, it was good. I mean, it was really nice. I mean, we again, like another great episode. It was great to see that here's another protocol that wants to be integrated with Frax. Very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just loved hearing about Alchemix Finance's journey. Scoopy's someone who like really cares about the space, really cares about his protocol. Like, he's very careful with his moves and like won't propose something if he didn't think it was safe or like the right thing to do. So it was like a nod of respect to Frax that he proposed that. And do you know the progress on that?
No, we need to do an update on that.
We need to do an update on that. Next up, in November, in the wake of FTX collapse, because it was literally a walking zombie since Luna and 3AC, DeFi functioned as usual, as normal, and Tetranode posted this really cool picture of Frax literally in the middle of everything going on in DeFi. So
cool.
I thought this was very cool. Thanks, Tetranode. Also in November, we had FrxGiving in New York. Gave a little talk for the people in the wake of FTX. I felt like something needed to be said. And also, like, I'm just waiting for the day to Arizona to sponsor me. So Arizona, if you're watching this, hit me up in my DMs. Next up, we have the Frax Master account. We have the Solo Sam interview, the first one of the year. And in this one, there was some conversation going on in the group chat. Honestly, like the Telegram group chat always has so much alpha. It's ridiculous. Like it's really like the source for like anything you need to know what's like on Sam's mind or like what's bubbling or like for Frax or around Frax. All you gotta do is pay attention to the Telegram. And this is when we heard of the Fed master account idea. So what were your thoughts on this episode? And what are your thoughts on the master account?
I mean, I mean, we're plowing straight ahead into 2023 with this new kind of vision for what Frax needs to do, and it's very cool. It's another smart decision on the part of Sam, and hopefully we can make it a reality in 2023.
2023, or at least like 2024, the latest. One thing I really like about the Frax protocol is like they don't make moves unless it's purposeful and it complements the other primitives in some way, whether it's like how Fraxland is constructed, how FrxSwap is constructed, why build FrxETH. And so, that the fact that like they are, after being like very cautious about real world assets, in the wake of like the collapse of Luna and also like, other like kind of relationships going bust, the fact that they want to pursue this one says a lot. And so, going to be exciting to see what happens there. We should do like more coverage of the Fed master account and education as that goes on.
100%.
Next up, we're still in November. Frax ships Frax Ferry, no pun intended. And literally at this time, Frax quietly expanding into all DeFi verticals, lending with Fraxland, DEX with FrxSwap, bridges with Frax Ferry, liquid staking with FrxETH, and stablecoin with, of course, Frax. So talk about, it's not just a Trinity, it's just growth, quintuplet. Yeah, it's a DeFi quintuplet.
We're everything there. Just wait. 2023 is going to be a big year.
Yeah, Z Prime Capital just wrote their fappening thesis. So instead of like the fat chain thesis, it's the fat app thesis, and that's another way of saying like DeFi Trinity, but with like extra, but with more fat. So. And we're in December. Fraxland launched with multiple pairs, including FXS, FrxETH, CVX, CRV, Geom, and others. Right now, Geom is absolutely like earning so much yield. It's glorious. I think it's at 30% right now, or 20% or 30%, but I have to double check that. But, people are like levering up on their Geom. What is Fraxland's T-Val right now? Do you know?
I think it's probably in 25 million.
25 million?
Yeah.
Getting there, solid growth. By this time in December, Frax's liquid staking derivative fully out. FrxETH is earning over 10% APR, perfectly pegged because of, the curve pool and the convex influence. Really an ingenious system, honestly. Like they really hit it out of the park with this one. So,
yeah. I just checked. So it's 24.7 million. So like almost on the dot with $73 million worth of collateral. One thing that will affect Fraxland a lot is just like the bullish sentiment in the market. As soon as some hopium comes back, people start taking loans again, and I think you'll see.
Every time.
Every time.
Every time. People never learn. Never learn. So when they want to lever up, Fraxland will be there.
Yeah.
I wonder if like Frax will implement Curve USD's liquidation system, because I really like the idea of how they like recollateralize and decollateralize. It makes a lot of sense, and it does it very safely. But they haven't. Curve USD, CRV USD hasn't released yet. We don't know what that actually looks like. They just have it in the white paper.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on that, or liquidations around Fraxland in general?
Yeah, I think it works. I mean, I don't think there's been too many liquidations so far in Fraxland.
Yeah, true.
Just looking at the numbers right now, and I don't see too many liquidations. But next cycle, again, like it's hard to get liquidations down here at the bottom because we don't have a ton of volatility right now. But next cycle is going to be the big one.
That's true. Yeah, next cycle we'll see, the stress test in action. Yeah. Wanted to point this out, which was the growth of Frax BP and how once it launched, you can clearly see it. And it is a force in, the curve war landscape for sure. It's just a matter of growing that more and more. And we cover that every week on Frax Check. And it's been a lot of ups and downs with that. And then, we have two more things. We have that. There we go. And now we have the 2-year anniversary meetup. 2-year anniversary. We had a lot of events this year for Frax.
Yeah.
Honestly, we literally put like the Frax events team on our back.
And it was a good meetup as well too. I mean, Sam K came out, and
Sam came out. Nadar came out, who, you'll see him a lot on the governance forums because he's like, shepherds governance in that whole process. Justin came out. Justin, phenomenal dev. Shout out Justin. This was a lot of fun.
Pull the picture of the Flywheel team right there. Picture number 4 at the top.
Yeah.
It's like you. The whole team's there.
The whole squad's here. Yeah. This is a good pick of the squad. A lot of fun. And then, of course, Frax is 2 years old. Like, it feels, I wonder, like, that's
8
like
days ago.
10, that's like, that's like 20 years in stablecoin years, or 10 years in stablecoin. Like 1 year is 10 years, I swear to God. But it's 2, it made it, it's pegged. And at the beginning of the year, it was just a stablecoin. Now it's a full-fledged financial system that's powered by, a killer liquidity engine. So you actually coined that.
Yeah, liquidity engine. That's where we're going again, and it's really gonna kick off this year. So it's been a lot of fun. This year's definitely been the most exciting for Frax so far, but I've got a feeling that 2023 is going to be one for the books.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot of stuff that went on this year. What do you think are like the biggest highlights?
Definitely the 4 pool.
4 pool, yeah.
I mean, Frax bringing down the entire crypto market. And
the 4 pool is
yeah, the 4 pool. I mean, looking back on it always has to be the 4 pool and Do Kwon.
Do Kwon. Yeah.
Frax. Again, like Sam tried to make himself the main character, or he was forced into the limelight as the main character by Do Kwon.
He was forced. Yeah. He was forced into the limelight. I guess like from a mainstream perspective, the biggest thing was the 4 pool because of all the media coverage, Do being the main character as he was, like how, Luna was just taking everything by storm. But I think like what really stands out to me is just through all the bullshit, through all the news, like how the Frax team just put their heads down and shipped. And like you said, like they didn't go to conferences, they literally just stayed in. They knew their mission. They knew what they needed to do. And they went beyond, I said this at the beginning, they went beyond expectations. And, literally like first thread with Andrew Kang, like how Frax is the central bank of DeFi. Later on, you see like the Fed master account and Sam, like how could we be the central bank of DeFi? We should emulate like what's going on in the real world with what's the risk-free rate in the real world? Well, it's the Fed master account. And it shocks me. Like, I guess I shouldn't be shocked, but there is no education about like Fed master accounts. Like no one knows what it is. Even people in finance that I thought would know what it is, they don't know what it is.
It's a difficult one. I mean, it's again like the politics and managing of the U.S. dollar is deep and complex, and uh, only a few people really understand what's happening there. But we're going to try next year to educate everyone about that and bring some better understanding about how the dollar and money actually works.
Yeah, we're gonna go full stable here at Flywheel, so be prepared. If you're curious about stablecoins, stick around. You've come to the right place. Sam, what are you most excited about for next year with Frax?
What am I most excited about? I think it just like again, like we talked about some predictions. I think there's some sort of curve recovery, and that's going to be the big driver for next year. Is something is coming to curve that we don't know about. Maybe it's like one of those bank coins which hasn't been launched yet, or something else. But there has to be something coming to curve. It's the place to be, and the competition is going to get kicked off again. We can't have a non-curve competitor for forever, right?
What do you think? Like there'll be a new AMM? You're saying?
No, it's not. It's not even A&M. I think like the DEX. Like I think we're fully mature in DEXs. Like we don't need more DEXs.
Mm-hmm.
We need more. We need more assets and more liquidity. And liquidity has to either come from like the liquidity has to come from somewhere, right? So I think like there could be a USDC competitor that comes along once that stablecoin bill comes, because like let's just assume like banks can issue their own stablecoins and distribute them on crypto, and they want to distribute them on crypto networks. Maybe you have a couple of different coins which appear on Curve, right, and now get paired against Frax in as a meta pool, right? I don't know. I mean, there's definitely has to be something. There has to be a new project which attracts a lot of growth and is able to compete in the stablecoin wars.
Yeah. Do you think this happens? Yes or no? Another project gets a Curve whitelist next year. At least one project gets a Curve whitelist next year.
I don't know. I don't see how that happens, because essentially like C2TP is the kingmaker, and Convex doesn't have enough funds to do a takeover like they did of Frax, of other protocols. So like, why would they allow another protocol to come in? I mean, again, we'll see. Maybe there's some deal that they could cut or something. Like you can always like bribe your way into having things. Convex bribed their way into existence, and Frax bribed
their way into existence.
Was true. I mean, like Convex,
they bootstrapped their way. Yeah.
No, they bribed. I don't know if you remember the vote on Curve, but Convex was the second whitelist ever on Curve. The first was Wi-Fi.
Yearn.
Yeah, Wi-Fi. Yeah. And Convex's thing, Convex was like, look, we're going to airdrop everybody if you just whitelist us. We got a huge airdrop plan. We're going to do this, then the other. And they won. And, they were able to take over from there. Very smart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they executed beautifully on their mission. The thing I'm most excited about next year, really excited to see them scaling out their primitives, especially their winning ones, such as FrxETH and Fraxland. Expanding the Frax's footprint just like a little bit more, getting like a little bit notice. Hoping that I think like FrxETH could like really lead the way in that regard, especially with like the rise of LSDs as a narrative. And then Fed master account, if they can like get that would be huge news as well.
Yeah. But remember, I mean, we have an imminent into like 2023 roadmap coming from the Frax team. So maybe that's today, maybe that's tomorrow, and we'll have
maybe Frax BTC's on there.
Yeah.
Or Eigenlayer. Who knows?
Eigenlayer, yeah.
Yeah. But, we'll save that for the Frax team. And wow, this is a long app. I thought this was gonna be way shorter, but this ended up being an hour and a half.
There was a lot to cover.
There's a lot that happened this year, and we got through like all the most important highlights. And to all our listeners and viewers at home or wherever you are, thank you for being with us this year at Flywheel. Could not appreciate you more. It's been a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun things coming for 2023. If you want to keep up with everything that's going on, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, that bell button. Let us know what you think of the episode. Let us know how you think of how we're doing. please leave a comment below, give us a like, follow us on Twitter at Flywheel Pod, hit us up on Telegram, join our group, the conversation at Flywheel Pod. You can follow me on Twitter at DeFi Dave 22.
And you can find me at traders_insight.
And we'll see you next year.
We're out.
Peace.